But so how should you have the settings on your defrost? So it's actually best. Hey guys, Steve here with 6-Star Automotive. Now that winter's upon us, I've got some tips and tricks that can help you get through it safer and with less stress. Before we get started, please like, subscribe, hit the button, turn the knob, pull the lever, ejector seat, rocket launcher, whatever it takes. And join me as we talk about winter tips and tricks. So I've got a mixture of 10 tips and tricks for you guys to help you get through the winter. Number one, wiper blades. I put wipers first because if you can't see through the windshield, you're really not going to get anywhere. A couple common preventable problems we see is the first thing you don't want to do is remove snow with your wiper blades. Wiper blades are definitely not designed to move anything of any weight other than water. Using your wipers to move heavy snow or ice can damage the pivot and at best cause the need to replace the arm and at worst the whole transmission assembly. The number one failure that we see for wiper blades is not turning them off when you stop the car. We see it at least 5 or so times a year that people will turn the car on, wipers are still on from the last time you stopped, and they'll immediately turn on and then they can strip and break. Number two, washer fluid. So washer fluid up here is extremely important. You really never know when it's going to get cold enough to freeze the water in that bottle. So we always run negative 20 degrees all year long. That way we don't have to worry about any cold snaps or any transition periods or did we get the right washer fluid in or did we remove it in time. We totally recommend that for everybody. We've seen way too many expanded and blown up washer bottles to even bother with that anymore. Winter tires. So tires are extremely important. If you've ever come in and talked to me, I always recommend a separate set of dedicated winter tires for your vehicle. Is it necessary? No. Is it safer? Absolutely. Winter tires are designed with a softer compound, with more siping, with better grooves to evacuate snow and slush and water, and they're just all around much better and much safer in the wintertime. That said, having a set of winter tires and having to swap them over on the same wheels every season gets old pretty quickly. So I always recommend having a dedicated set of winter tires on wheels with TPMS sensors. It's a rather expensive investment, but it can really pay off in keeping you out of the ditch. So side note, studded tires versus non-studded tires. I think if you're driving around town, studded tires aren't really all that necessary. Really, I think where studded tires shine and where they're really important is on back roads that don't get plowed very often, and they can have like ice sheets on the road. Studded tires would be good for that, but on the asphalt, I mean, I'm really more of a studless kind of guy. So along with the winter tires, all-wheel drive. I'm going to put these two kind of in the same category. So all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive is extremely important. I mean, really, when you have a two-wheel drive vehicle, you really generally only have one-wheel drive. You can look up how a differential works. Most differentials in vehicles are what they call open differentials. So the wheel with the least amount of traction is going to get the most amount of power. Again, more complicated than I'm necessarily planning to get into right now. If you want a video about that, leave me a comment and I can take care of that. So having a drive wheel in the back and a drive wheel in the front is very helpful. And oftentimes when vehicles have four-wheel drive, they'll upgrade the differential in the rear to be some sort of a limited slip or a locking type differential, and then you'll have both wheels in the rear turn, and then you'll have at least one in the front turn, if not both. Modern cars will use the ABS system to actually brake the wheel that is slipping, so the differentials aren't as important as they used to be. So one of the reasons why Subarus are so great is that they have a very special all-wheel drive system. They have a longitudinal transmission like you would see in a pickup truck. So it doesn't go sideways like a transaxle in most small SUVs, Hondas, stuff like that, where they call it a transverse engine. They have it longitudinal. So the engine faces forward and the transmission goes straight back, which allows you to have the same length of drive axles or symmetrical all-wheel drive in the front and in the back. So when you have one axle that's longer than the other, you're going to get what's called torque steer. And number 4 is TPMS. TPMS stands for the Tire Pressure Monitoring System. A lot of people really hate this system because of the light that can come on, but I've been saved by it myself. I didn't realize I had a nail in my tire until the light came on, and I pulled over right before I was about to leave town, and sure enough, my tire was almost flat, and it had stopped me from getting stuck in the middle of the highway. Something to know, the sensors that are in the tires for the TPMS system are battery operated, and they're really only designed to last for about 5 years, so you need to plan to replace those sensors about every 5 years. Some of the systems that they're going into use the ABS wheel speed sensors in order to monitor the tire pressure, and that can get rid of the need for those sensors long term. So come on, engineers, let's make that more of a reality. To simplify the TPMS system, there's a range of pressure that the tires need to be under in order to keep that light off. Basically, in cold weather, your tire pressure can start to get lower, and in hot weather, it can get higher. So you'll notice that on really cold days, your TPMS light can come on, and in really hot days, same thing. Another tip, if the TPMS light is flashing, generally that means that there's a problem with the sensor and not just an issue with the tire pressure. Number 5, the battery. So I could spend a whole 20-minute video talking about batteries. So batteries are extremely complicated, but in the effort to try and simplify the whole thing, so your engine is harder to turn when it's cold, for obvious reasons, which means that it takes more power to turn that starter motor than it would if it was 70 degrees outside. So it takes more power. So a battery that'll start a car seemingly without problems at about 60 plus degrees may not start it at 30 or 20 degrees. So as a general rule of thumb, we recommend replacing your battery about every 5 years. I mean, really at that point, any year after that 5th year is kind of a gamble. I mean, can you make it through the next year? Maybe. Absolutely. You can probably make it, you could even make it maybe through an extra couple of years, but that 5-year mark is really when we start to see about 50% of the batteries lose their ability to continue. And I think it's something like 70% of batteries will fail within 6 years. So if you don't know when your battery was replaced, or you just want to get it tested, come on by, we could take care of that, no problem. Number 6, a winter emergency kit. So this thing is, I mean, it's something you're probably never going to need, right? So it's difficult to justify spending $100 or $200 on a winter emergency kit. Most people will have something in the back of their car for $20 to get off Amazon. Just imagine being on the side of the road, waiting for a tow truck, and you're out of gas or whatever, right? I mean, so like those thermal blanket things, some snacks. Basically what I'm trying to say is that a winter emergency kit in the back of your car is not a bad idea, but I wouldn't skimp on it. Number 7, warming up your car. So some people will say that this isn't necessary. Some people will say that it's absolutely necessary. I'm just going to give you my take. So I always warm up my car. Really, I warm up my car all the time. I've seen too many problems in my years with what they call short cycling engines. Like if you only live 5-10 minutes away from where you tend to commute every day, your engine really doesn't have enough time to get up to operating temperature in order to get that good drive cycle through the car. If you warm it up, there's no doubt about that. It does burn more gas, so your fuel economy is going to be lower. But there's many upsides to it. Your engine is not under any load while it warms up. That's good for it in the long run. It helps defrost your windshield so you don't have to do all the scraping. It gives you time to get all the snow off your car. We'll talk about that one in a second. And it gives your engine time to warm up before you turn the heater on. With that said, we're going to move on to number 8, defrost. So your vehicle's internal combustion engine is basically a heat generator. The problem is that the heat that you get from your cabin comes from the coolant that's inside the engine. So if you start the engine and crank your heater full blast, you're actually cooling the engine as it's trying to warm up. So it makes it to where it'll take longer for it to warm up and then subsequently longer for you to get heat. But so how should you have the settings on your defrost? So it's actually best to turn your blower about halfway and then turn your heater also about halfway. That'll let the engine warm up, and then you're not siphoning as much heat from the engine. So most modern cars don't even let you mess with the settings anymore, but just so you understand how it works. So you want to have your air and not on recirculation, but on fresh air. The reason for this is that the cold air outside is going to be drier than the air inside the car. So you want to bring the cold, dry air from outside into the vehicle, warm it up, which allows it to absorb more moisture and then blow that on the windshield. That's the best, fastest way to get rid of the fog on your windshield. Number 9, this is what I was talking about earlier, the snow broom. I didn't know about this until I moved here, but these things are the trick. Like, they are the only way to fly. Those little brush things that everybody gets for a couple bucks over at Walmart with the scraper on the end of it, trash. I wouldn't mess with those ever. So you can actually get the snow brooms that have a scraper on the end of them. So if you are in a rush and you do need to scrape the windshield, then you can do that. I personally really never scrape the windshield. I just warm my car up and use the snow broom, and then that takes care of it. So these snow brooms are fantastic. They're made out of foam. They have a wide surface area, so you can push the snow off of the car and pull it at the same time. So you just end up pushing, pulling, and all the snow is off really quickly, so you're not out there freezing, and really easily. You can also turn it at an angle, what I was talking about before with the wiper blades, and kind of dig the ice or the snow. And you can kind of dig the snow out of where the wiper blades are, so it doesn't pile up in there and you don't have to use your hands. The snow broom works great for your front grille, your headlights, your taillights, your license plate, everything. And it works really fast, and it doesn't damage the paint. It's fantastic. It's the only way. The last thing I'm going to talk about today, number 10, remove all the snow from your car. You'll see people driving around with a foot of snow on the top of their car. So there are very good reasons not to do this. The first one being, as you're driving, your vehicle's warming up and that very bottom layer of all that snow is melting. And what can happen is you hit the brakes and all that snow comes crashing down on your windshield and blocks your view at best, or breaks your wiper blades. The same thing that can happen the other direction. You're flying down the highway and a sheet of snow ice can fling off and hit the car behind you. All the snow that sits on the front of your hood with speed will flake off and hit the windshield. So really all that can be avoided by just removing all the snow from the car before you take off. And with the snow broom, it's really fast and easy. The last piece of that same trick, if you have a sunroof, you never want to let snow build up on that sunroof while the car is running. Just like I was talking about before, that first layer of snow will melt. Sunroofs are designed to have drains, and those drains go down the A-pillar, and then they go down safely off the side of the car. If you think about that for a second, right? So you have little tubes full of water that are going down your A-pillar and freezing. The water will back up and it will leak down the headliner. So always remove all the snow from the top of where your sunroof area is, or you're gonna learn the hard way. All right guys, that's all 10 tips and tricks that I've got for winter. If you haven't had your vehicle inspected for the winter, come on by. We got plenty of space. If you have any questions or have any tips of your own, please put them in the comments to let everybody else know. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas. And if you'd like, come on by to experience the 6-star difference for yourself.